Oh, misty eye of the mountain below, keep careful watch of my brother's soul. And should the sky be filled with fire and smoke, keep watching over Joseph's sons. I see smoke, and I see a lot of it. Now, where there's smoke, there's fire. There's a lot of stuff going on right now, and so this is just my attempt to make some sense of it. And fair warning, this will be a little cray-cray, okay? But then again, hasn't 2020 and 21 been cray-cray? I mean, really, the last 5 years have been pretty cray-cray. So just embrace it, you know? So here's the thing. I see smoke. So it is now January 12th. In 8 days, there is January 20th. And what happens on that day is going to determine the course of this nation. And again, people have always said that on elections, but man, this one, I've been around a little bit, and everybody's like, oh, it's the end of the world when they lose. Well, it's not the end of the world, but this is pivotal. All right, it's a key moment. So what is the smoke? Well, big tech is now shutting down a collusion. I mean, this is like mafia style collusion to shut down Parler. Okay. And then Twitter has disbanded or disbarred or kicked off their platforms. Facebook's done the same thing to the President of the United States. Did a video a couple days ago about first they came. You know, so we can't wait. This is the time to stand up and fight. Actually, you know, so big tech is censoring. They've been censoring conservative voices for a long time, and they say, well, he's incited violence, and I'm like, okay, I don't really agree with that with the Capitol thing, but okay, let's say he is. Well, have you disbarred all the other people that are calling for more violence than that? Did you disbar BLM and Antifa this summer? Did you involve? Are you going to not barred? Are you going to kick Kamala Harris because she actually funded getting people out of jail for rioting this summer? Okay. Are you going to have the Ayatollah of Iran? All right. Have you kicked him off? He's calling death to America. That's some violence there. Death to Israel. All right, there's some violence there. So China, I mean, no, but it's selective. So whenever it's something selective, then that reveals the hand. I mean, if you play poker, you can kind of get tells and stuff. Well, there's an obvious tell. When it's only conservatives, when it's only President Trump, when it's only this. All right, now they're talking to other smoke. They're talking about disbarring senators, Hawley and Cruz. Because they're lawyers, and apparently 5,000 law students from across the country, but Yale and Harvard and other places, disbarring because they dared to contest, they dared to take a stand. Ooh, where have I heard this before? Serious. Okay, and then they're trying to. So I think this is again smoke. The Pelosi is now trying to get the 25th Amendment. They're trying to get Pence on board. Their 25th Amendment, basically, you can move the president out of office if he's unfit for some reason, okay? Or now they're trying to do a second impeachment. Okay, so this is smoke. What are they so scared of? And this is the interesting thing. This is an ironic confirmation. There's probably a better word for it, better term than that, but an ironic confirmation. Sometimes you know, the shadow proves the sunshine kind of idea. Sometimes when everybody's really concerned, what are they so scared about? Just enjoy. If they just think this, you know, president, okay, if they think Biden's going to be president in 8 days, then just wait and gloat a little bit, rub it in the face of the people you argue with. But all this is like overkill, and it's like, okay, what's going on? So this is smoke. Now, what is it confirmation of? All right, so what's the fire? Well, as I mentioned the other day, President Trump he's still president, by the way. He has a number of options. And depending on what kind of proof he has and what kind of people will listen to that proof, that he went to the courts, they would refuse to even hear the case. He went to the Senate and the Congress, they refused to hear it. Or they heard it and then they just certified a fraud, okay? And so now I think he's probably going to the generals. Because actually that's been the discussion. Pelosi reached out to the generals and saying, hey, you know, they're scared because he's probably talking to the generals, because now what you have is the Insurrection Act. You have there's a foreign collusion, foreign interference in our election, and there's apparently, so this is again smoke. I don't know any of this. My brother got really upset about Lynn Wood. Okay, Lynn Wood's an attorney, and Sidney Powell, and they've got sued. Another ironic confirmation. They got sued for $1.3 billion by Dominion software, the voting machine, for slander or libel or whatever. Okay, so why $1.3 billion? Yeah, they have that sitting around. Now these are lawyers, and they're actually, we haven't heard them for a long time, but Sidney Powell has been a federal prosecutor. She's been around a long time. Lynn Wood, the same thing. These are not people that are going to make inflammatory statements off the cuff. Now Trump, yeah, he does that, but he's not a lawyer. He's a business guy. He's an entertainer until he became president, right? And so, okay, a little flamboyant, a little off the cuff from him, and people are like, okay. But these guys are lawyers, all right? And so they know that if they say something that's not true, it can really come back to, really get them disbarred, sued, whatever, all right? And yet they're making statements. They're making statements that are basically, along with generals in the U.S. military, retired generals, General Michael Flynn and General McInerney, maybe saying that name wrong, they're making statements that are scandalous, right? These are just outside the box, but I'm like, okay, wait a second. And I've been tempted. Sometimes I read these and I'm like, okay, guys, you guys are just a little crazy. Just a little bit. But then the way Pelosi's acting, the way big tech is acting, the way I'm like, oh, there may be something there. So this shadow proves the sunshine. And then, so this is what could be going on right now is within a few days, and this gets to the prophecies I've been hearing for years, and I thought they were wrong. And one thing about prophecy, and I had somebody on Facebook, I actually unfriended somebody recently. First person I've unfriended on Facebook. And I didn't want to do it, and I did it, and I feel peace. But this person was accusing, he was a scoffer, just everything I said, and he wanted me to apologize for prophecy and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to tell what I hear, okay? And now there are, prophecy a lot of times does not have an expiration date. Okay, now, for instance, I was watching a video about the Antichrist, and I forget which prophet it was, but prophesied the destruction of Babylon. Well, Babylon has never been destroyed, or has not been destroyed yet. All right, so that's a prophecy that's been cooking for 3,000 years or 2,500 years. Babylon went into disrepair and it was abandoned, but it was never destroyed. The Persians took it without destroying the city. And the time when Daniel sees the writing on the wall and the Babylonians, that story. And so Babylon's never been destroyed. So that prophecy, people would be like, well, is it wrong? Is it wrong? Well, no, this is not yet. All right, so there's a lot of prophecies that are not yet. And you can scoff and you can reject and you can, what's the Bible, despise, okay, prophecy. Or you can be like, okay, Lord, you're bigger than me. You've said this. So what has God said? God said Trump's going to have a second term. Now, the question I had was that in 4 years, he runs again in 2024. Okay, that could be a fulfillment of that. Or is it now? So I'm just going to tell you what the word God gave me when I was praying this. The word God gave me was now. Now, what does that mean? Well, I'm in context, I'm interpreting that to mean that he's going to get a second term now. And if I'm wrong on that, but that's what I heard. And maybe I'm interpreting it wrong, but I'm not going to put God in a box and apologize. That's something God's been teaching me. If he tells me something or has me speak something, I can't apologize for it. I can apologize if I present it in an arrogant way or in an offensive way. I can apologize for my behavior, but I can't apologize for the word that he gives me. And I can, like I said, I can apologize for my attitude. I can apologize if I misinterpret it. But I'm pretty honest. I'm like, this is what I'm interpreting. Here's what God said, and here's how I'm interpreting it. But never has anything God's told me. I've not yet had anything God's told me proved false. Some of it has been proven true. Some of it, most of it, has not yet. Okay, so again, the little kind of thing about prophecy. But the prophetic word, again, the fire behind all this, Is God doing something or not? Did he call his shot or not? Is something going on behind the scene? Has he orchestrated something? And again, the illustration of the children of Israel, the Hebrews going through the Red Sea, and the Egyptians coming after them. Now you got to think about that. The Egyptians coming after them. It's just 10 plagues, okay? They escape Egypt, and these people are walking through a sea where the waters have parted. And the Egyptians follow them? What arrogance and anger. And it was a trap. It was a trap the whole time. Now the children of Israel, if you read that verse, I'm going to get into it in, I think, Exodus 12, I believe. But in that verse, or in that chapter, God leaves the children of Israel into a trap. And then he makes a way through the sea, right? But the trap was really for the Egyptians. And I believe what's going on since the election, even before, for years now, since the impeachment last year, and for years now, the trap has been for the corrupt. And I'm not saying Democrat or Republican, anybody who's corrupt, anybody who's sold out their country, who's sold out, has sold out their oath of office to the Constitution, anybody who's sold out corruption. I believe there's good Democrats. I believe there's good Republicans. I believe there's corrupt Democrats. I believe there's corrupt Republicans. All right. So, but whoever has sold themselves out, okay, they're being led into a trap. All right. And all right. So this is the fire. This is the fire that is behind the smoke, right? But the smoke. So again, the reaction. What are people so afraid of, right? Why is this big push to deplatform Parler and to disbar senators that dare to speak out? To and it's not consistent. If it were consistent, but it's not. The riots this summer, they didn't disbar any of these people. The Ayatollah in Iran, no, he's fine. China, who's killing Uyghurs, the organs harvesting in China, but Trump dares to contest and say, wait a second, you guys cheated. And he's the one that's silenced. The president of the United States, the hubris, the pride, the arrogance of this. Now, I did see on a little note, that's kind of the main idea of this. But then I saw something on social media, and I'm kind of figuring out social media right now. So Philip Files, wherever I go, if you check the platform, I'm going to be on different platforms. It's Philip Files. So this will be on Rumble and YouTube. I'm also on MeWe and Facebook. My name is actually Philip Fan still, so you can probably find it both places. But here's the point. This person on social media was basically saying, what's more likely? That everyone is inclusion, everybody's corrupted, and Donald Trump is telling the truth, or Donald Trump is delirious and everybody else, what's more likely? And then it's a compelling argument, except here's the problem. Now, whenever I read something that just kind of bugs me, I'm like, okay, why does that bug me? Why does that reaction? Why does that argument? So I play with it because, is it something in me? Or is there something with the argument, or maybe a little both, right? So this argument, I was thinking about it, and like I mentioned, my brother, he gets offended by Lynn Wood and the conspiracy theories, and I'm like, okay, and I'm very hesitant to accept the conspiracy theories, but all the smoke is, I'm like, okay, maybe there's some truth to that. And then again, these people being lawyers, having a lot online, they're putting their necks out, all right? And if they're lying, then their careers, their reputation, everything they've ever worked for is mud, all right? So I'm hesitant to say they're lying. These generals, McEnary and Flynn. Okay, so here's the thing about what I think, is Trump is not where this started. And that's where people mistake this. This started back with the Tea Party. This started back in the 2000s. This started back years and decades earlier with people having questions. The narrative with 9/11, okay? The World Trade Center number 7, what's going on there? That... Research that. Now, if you don't want to take the red pill, don't research that. But World Trade Center 7, find out what happened there. That opened my eyes to that whole kerfuffle, okay? That whole messed up Gordian knot that is 9/11. World Trade Center 7, all right? And that's smoke, all right? It reminds me in many ways. So people are feeling this anxiousness. Something's wrong. Something's not right in the world. I'm thinking like the Matrix. So Neo thinks there's something wrong with the world. There's something wrong. This is not right, okay? And then Morpheus comes along and the red pill, and then he opens his eyes. So I think Trump is more the Morpheus character, America's known there's something wrong. We've known there's something wrong since the Kennedy assassination, but it goes back to World War II, Operation Paperclip, the intrusion of the secret societies, actually the Federal Reserve, and there's been a lot of stuff, and it's just been building up. People are know there's something wrong, and then Trump comes along and says, yes, there is something wrong, and here it is. And here's a fighter, here's a champion. And that's what people are rallying behind. It's not like he has suddenly elucidated all this stuff that all of a sudden we're like, oh yeah. No, we've been thinking this. We've been asking this. People have been questioning this. So, yeah, I think there is collusion. I think there's massive corruption in our government around the world. I think the New World Order, the globalists, this is just straight from the pit of hell. All right? So, yeah, call me crazy. But you know what? If you discount me, it's at... if you keep discounting people because they're, that's on you. That's on you. Okay, so the only thing about Trump is like the champion, is a David in a way, who's willing to take on the giant. He's willing to take on the giant. Let me make sure you see my shirt. We are American. All right, so he's willing to take on the giant. And he's that boy who tells the emperor, you got no clothes, except for Trump knows enough to know that he's going to get in trouble for it. Whereas the boy is just innocently, hey, he's got no clothes, right? Trump is like, no, you got no clothes. You're freaking naked, you stupid, ugly idiot. I mean, Trump, because Trump, right? So now, on the other side, another thing about the smoke and one thing is projection. The enemy always accuses us of what he's doing. And think about that. Whenever you're in a spiritual time, or whenever you're trying to do the right thing, you're going to get accused of what your enemy is doing. So look at it. So there's a protest on January 6th. All right, Trump says, hey, go over there peacefully and patriotically, go over there and, let them know who you stand for, just, and they let them in. I'm not going to get into the whole Capitol thing because I'm not an expert on that, but it seems like a lot of the videos, like they let them in and they took pictures. It just seemed like very staged, but that's just now some people did die. Actually, Babbitt was shot for no reason. Apparently a Capitol Police died. Another guy committed suicide. Now, suicide always funny. Not funny. Suicide is very curious. Okay, why do people commit suicide, especially around events? It's kind of like the guy who shoots himself twice in the head, or because if people in these situations that commit suicide, always brings up a question. Okay, what happened there? But that's okay. But whatever happened with them, I don't know about that Capitol Police officer. But apparently, one committed suicide, one was killed or got hit in the head with a fire extinguisher, and then Ashley Babbitt was shot. So that's bad. Okay, this is not great. No, and conservatives and Trump condemns it. I condemn it. There should be no violence. We need to do this, or no unprovoked violence. I do want to be clear about that, because I don't know what the libtards are thinking, but you keep pushing the deplorables who have not been violent up to this point. At some point, and maybe that's their goal. So that's where, as Christians, we need to be very careful, be very deliberate. The anger of man produces not the righteousness of God. So we can't react, all right? But at the same time, we do need to be prepared, all right? And I don't know what their goal is. Maybe they're trying to stir up a civil war, and I don't think that's going to go the way they think it will. But again, the enemy's always projecting. So basically, the idea here, I just wanted to kind of get you, present some things. I have a lot of questions. I don't know what's going to happen over the next few days. I believe from what God said, something's going to flip. There is going to be a reversal. There is going to be a even bigger revealing. People are going to be arrested. There's going to be tribunals. I do believe this. Maybe now. I believe, and I'm praying now, because that's the word God gave me, now. But it may be later. A lot of times prophecies are conditional as far as, do we respond? Do people pray? Do people, recent in the last couple of months, there have been numerous people that could have stood up. The Supreme Court could have stood up. They didn't. All right? the House and the Senate could have stood up. They didn't. These different courts could have stood up. The legislators could have stood up. There's a lot of people, just domino after domino, of cowards. And now some people did stand up here and there. I'm not saying nobody stood up. Over 1,000 affidavits. The legislators in Arizona and Pennsylvania and other places asked Mike Pence to send it back to them, and he didn't. So there have been people that are standing up. So I'm not saying nobody's standing up. Okay. So I don't know. I'm praying that now that God will move, and ultimately that's what's got to happen. Trump is not our savior. Okay. Now, like I said, I think he's a champion. God's using him. Okay. In a good way, and together, God doesn't use us in like a manipulative. He joins with us. We become co-laborers with Him. So I think God is using Trump to bless this country, and we curse him. It still just boggles my mind. But the joy, Jesus, for the joy that was set before him, endured the cross, despising the shame, right? And I think that's got to be what's in Trump and the people that are standing with him and us. We've got to endure potential kickback. Otherwise, what are we? And we are America. So, again, watch the projection. That's the thing. But where there's smoke, there's fire, and right now there is a lot of smoke. Be safe, shalom, use wisdom, but stand.